So welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for November 4th, 2022. We'll follow our standard approach of looking at what we've got in milestone 11. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess it's time for the daylight saving change, right? So this is the last time this year at this time, and next week we'll shift to 1 hour off.
Right, it goes 1 hour earlier, I think, right? Fall
Yeah.
backwards, yeah. Does that still work for everybody here at least?
Works for me still.
Yeah, probably works for me.
I'm good too.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's always a good time of year to double check that we've got a reasonable time, so it's good. Any other announcements? Okay, if not, I will share my screen and we will jump into the thing. So drive towards full coverage. We don't have Jack here today, who usually gives us an update, but we can look at Node.js add-on API. I know Jack had submitted some PRs, but I think we've landed all this one, right? So, but last we checked, I think it was waiting on Jack to respond to your comments, right, Kevin? Yeah.
Yeah, I think no, actually I think he added some new ones. So I do need to take a look at that then.
Okay. So basically that's the next step is when you have time, you can take a look. That's good. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything to discuss on that one, unless anybody has something.
Nothing here.
Okay, and actually, while I think about it, I'm going to open up the participants. Just oh, I do that. Okay, there, just in case other people show up. Okay, next one is better coverage in Node API and YouTube. Again, I don't know if anybody here has any updates on that today.
Nope.
Okay, and adding list. I know Nicola was driving these next two kind of and adding the list of C language bindings. So I don't know if we have an update on that one either. Okay, if not, we've got our tracking issue for modules that have been ported. So nothing new there. We can take a look at on API. Nothing of note there, just still moving on up. Okay, oops, sorry, I'm just trying to get to, okay, so here we go. I haven't done anything on enabling the testing for debug for add-ons. So on to stale issues. And let's see here. So this one, okay, so there's no new stale issues. This one I know we talked about and there's a PR being worked on. Let's see, open that up. I don't know if there's anything. Let's see. See anything new there? Just looking at the PR itself to see if there's anything worth discussing. I don't think. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you can merge it at this point.
Yeah, I think I tried. Because the CI's locked down, so I tried to kick off CI. Forgot. So once the CI, our security releases go out, the CI is not locked down. Yeah, I'll run a CI, and I think we're probably ready to land. The only question we might still have is whether this one right here, and maybe it's worth discussing a little bit, is like, do we mark this Semver minor, Semver patch? And like currently it doesn't add anything in a Node API version, so we should maybe just discuss and make sure we're all comfortable with that. You know, some context is like, I think the one thing that's kind of added is this probably here, we are adding a new return code. Now, we've never actually marked those like or guarded those by a version or experimental, because once there's a number there, like we can't really change it because otherwise it would break further down ones. And like, because of the way things work, if we have 3 experimental things that we add, there's no guarantee that you're not going to make the middle one experimental versus the first one or whatever. So we haven't done that. And I think that's why this isn't unused. It was probably for some experimental feature or something we changed as experimental, but then we didn't remove it. We just said we're not using it anymore. So we are adding this. Now, I guess the challenge, like in terms of like Semver Minor, once you use this, you can kind of no longer, if you use that constant, you can't compile against a version that didn't have that constant defined, right? So
But
maybe
you
it needs to be
can,
Semver Minor for that reason.
but people can always compare with the latest Node API header files, and they can define, since this code is just a constant value, they can just define it with, like, say,
They can
there is
define it
no,
themselves. Yeah, there is a
yeah,
workaround. That is true. The other way I look at it too is like, I think we promise forwards compatibility so that when you, if you compiled on, say, the oldest LTS 14, that add-on should be able to run with any of the newer ones. At least that is for like, if you compile with a particular Node API version, we promise that. But I'm not sure we promise that, like, if you compile with the latest node, that then will always run with the earlier nodes. You know what I mean?
yeah, right.
Like it most likely will, because, and I guess the other thing too is, if we make it Semver Minor, that definitely means that it's harder to get it to flow backwards, because we don't do, like for 14, for example, we don't do as many Semver Minors, and there's maybe more look at, like, should a Semver Minor go in there or not?
In context
One
of this
problem,
enum, oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, you can again. Yeah, I mean, one problem is that there might be some release gaps between the LTS versions. Like, say, people are making their steps so quick to use this definition, and like, say, 14 just not released yet, and they also not bundling the headers file into their source code. So the problems might be between the gaps, in the gaps between the LTS version releases. Their add-ons might not compile between different LTS versions.
Yeah, it's the compiling, so it's, but I think we're stuck. We've never guarded the additions to those error codes with the Node API versions, and I don't think we really can. So I think that problem just always existed.
Yeah, right. It's not a new problem.
You'll never get that error code in those earlier versions. It's kind of like the safest way to build your add-ons, if you want them to, well, actually, yeah. They may not compile. If you get it compiled, it will still run, because like you'll never get that return code. You'll still crash, so that's still kind of a problem, but like you can check against that error code, you just don't get it. But like, yeah, you could put code in which causes you not to be able to compile. Yeah, I guess we just don't have it's not a new problem from that perspective, and marking it Semver Minor doesn't really help in any way on that front.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so that's, I think that's the only, I guess, so it's back to, we kind of have a choice. As long as we're all comfortable with just leaving it the way it is, then, I think you're right, Vladimir, this is ready to land and I'll just run it through the CIs. But I wanted to mention that because I think it's kind of like, it's a gray area and we should make like a conscious decision and be comfortable as a team that we're doing the right thing.
Agreed.
Okay, so if anybody like has any concerns, and you think about it a little bit more, post in the issue. Otherwise, I'll assume we brought it up here and we're okay, and we'll just progress the way it is and try and then to flow it back into the previous versions. And that's probably the best we can do in terms of helping the module authors in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. Like, to me, this change looks good, and I don't see how we can actually improve it in terms of this error code. We add some additional kind of version information. It's just not clear at all.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. I just thought it'd be good. We all think a little bit about that. So that's that one. Then the next one is this one. We open it to remind us what we last discussed. So this is working on the feature bits. So just waiting on that. I don't think anything worth discussing unless somebody has something top of mind. We get there. This one.
I have not had any time to
Yeah.
work on those changes that we discussed.
Sounds good. Trace set functions. Let's see this one. I can't remember again.
And it's waiting for the feature
bits. Okay, good.
Yeah,
So that's kind of, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we can discuss about the feature bit aside from the reference types.
Yep.
And since I have posted a comment in that PR, and maybe it's worthy to discuss how do we ship the feature bit.
Yeah,
yeah.
Let's do that. Let's just get through this list and then we'll move right to that. How about that?
Yeah, sounds great.
So that's this one then. This one.
Yes, I recently commented because I saw there was another issue. I think it was, that one that was created. I think they are related. And I think Chengzong was looking into this one. If you open that issue.
This one here?
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, right. I was considering writing a documentation section in the Node API documentation, and probably we need examples how to run the cleanup hooks and finalizers together in a proper way, like what we do in Node.js core to checking those allocated object wraps and remove them all in the cleanup hooks.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to explain the right way to do it, I guess, is the.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at that one, and that relates to the other one. So that's good. Sorry, I'm going back to here then. That's this one.
And no progress there.
Okay. Let me go back to there. And that's it. Okay, so that's our list of stale issues. So now let's go. This one we already talked about. This one actually I'm going to take off as a separate. I think we've discussed it, so I will remove it from the milestone. There we go. Okay. So it doesn't show up again anymore. And then we'll go on to the issues in node, and let's start with the one on the feature bits. So it's here. Pull requests. I'm just in. Okay. And that's this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'd gone through and made a few comments as well, but Lucian, Cass, you'd mentioned some things you thought we should start off by discussing.
Yeah, it's the first comment I left in the thread.
This one, no.
And it's a review comment, I believe. So it might not be so. It's down below, I believe.
Okay, let me find that then. So
Yeah, here it is. It's in the middle of the page.
okay, I'm looking. Tell me when to stop. Here.
No, I believe it's one up.
One up. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, this is the one. I believe the current approach is a very good start, and I was just thinking about how can we introduce this feature to add-on authors, and how would it, like say, would it be too complex for add-on authors to declare multiple feature bits if they would like to, like say, if they would like to involve in the features? So I was thinking that, is there any possibility that we can, like say, save the node API versions instead of the feature bits in the compiled add-ons? One one advantage of the feature bits is that the add-on authors can freely composite several features with their own choice. Like say, I want feature A to be enabled, but I would not like feature B. I would like feature B to be disabled. So that will be a matrix of features to be toggled on and off. And I believe that would require us to maintain such a matrix, how these features would like to interact with each other. So it's a cool feature, but I was thinking that if it will be too complex for us and for the add-on authors to adopt the change over the time, since like say we are likely to add new features in this lists. So an alternative of this is that it saves the node API versions defined when they compile the add-on in the binary, so that there is one single flag that it say versions, and the versions is settled with a fixed set of features that is enabled. So we just have to test with node versions and node API versions, and with different versions. So each time we release a new version, we can define with that version and test with all the features enabled in that version. So that will be a relatively simpler for us to maintain the feature list, and in that way I can think of one advantage is that we can encourage people to migrate to the expected behavior over the time if they adopt the new version with, like say, and with the new Node API. So people will not be lagged off with old features. And since, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of to reduce. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I guess where we started was like we weren't comfortable, like it changed behavior. So we've kind of said Node API is forward compatible, like it's, if you've written code, it's going to continue to run. And
Yeah,
the thing is,
Yeah.
like that would change that contract in that it's like it would continue to run so long as you don't move up to a newer Node API version, right? Because like all new Node API versions have always been backwards compatible. So I
yes,
think
right.
what you're suggesting would be low, but if you want to go a new Node AP version, you've actually got to take this new behavior as well, which.
Yeah, right. That what I was thinking of, because I was thinking that over the time, and like say if you are using
Yeah, like if you're using version 7 that behaves a certain way and you want to not use that behavior, then you would be moving over to a new version, to version 8, and you just need to modify your code to work correctly with the expected behavior instead of continuing to compile for version 7 and then just say use this additional behavior that's been coded. Am I understanding that right?
yeah, right, existing add-ons, that is to say that add-ons already compiled and add-ons didn't change their code, they will continue to work. And if they would like to upgrade to the newer Node API versions, then the behavior might need to be updated to the expected behavior. But their existing code and their existing add-ons will continue to work with newer node.js versions.
Right. Right.
I guess the question is, have we defined it so people have to ask for a newer Node API version?
It's typically defined in the zip file or in the top of the header file or the source file before the inclusion of the Node API header.
But what happens if they don't define it at all?
Then you
I
get
think,
like a very basic version.
yeah, I was thinking that it was the maybe I need to check that. But I
Yeah, like
believe
as if you get the latest, then
Because all of
like
the
automatically be included.
because all of the guards are saying if version is greater than X, include this piece. So if you don't define a version, you're not going to get any of those pieces.
Okay.
Like you're not going to get the thread safe functions, you won't get object freeze or whatever. You don't get any of those stuff.
Let's just see here, because if that's true, then Node.js node, and we have our headers. Source. Down here, somewhere in here, we have the. Did I get the? No, I got the wrong one. Sorry.
Could be node API.h.
I believe it's defined in the JS native API.
Yeah, this one. There should be in both of them, really. So
It's on top
we
of the file. Here is the default behavior of Node API version definition.
right. So basically,
Interesting.
we do update that as like by default, you get the latest one.
We do not do that in Node add-on API.
But if
That's
it
why-
includes this file, it would by default get this.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense then.
But it's because we bumped this, right?
yeah. So
Like we
as long
could-
as don't
Go ahead.
as long as we don't bump this, then their behavior will not change by default. Since before, if we now, yeah, the status quo is that we bump this, there is no side effect.
Yeah.
And if we do have side effect of bumping this, then we can just simply leave it here and advise and suggest add-on authors to manually involve in the latest version of Node API.
Right. That is interesting as well in the terms of it potentially could allow us to remove things.
Yeah, over time.
I guess it's like, is that is anybody going to have like it's not quite ABI stable in terms well, it is ABI stable in that we're not breaking, we'd have to like not remove any past behavior, so you could always use an older version.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was thinking this can be a good alternative.
Right. I think in terms of like the thing is though that then for experimental, like you're basically forcing people to, if they want to use the experimental features, they've got to use the new behavior as well.
Yeah, one problem I was thinking that if there is any possibility that we introduce a new Node API and that Node API will not be compatible with, like say, old behaviors, especially about the V8 engines. But that's a assumption, but I don't have any examples right now. I was just thinking about that.
So basically, I like idea about this versioning, but let's pick one specific scenario. Let's talk about finalizers. What we were saying, like currently finalizers can be run only inside of a set immediate. So technically, we require people to exit the current JavaScript execution, and we only run finalizers in as a part of set immediate because we can potentially run some JavaScript code. But we discussed it and we said, in majority of cases, people really want to have just maybe native destructors. They don't really want to call JavaScript code. So we want to run all these finalizers as a part of a garbage collector cycle. So to be as soon as possible to avoid this kind of pseudo memory leaks. But some kind of module authors, they will still like maybe to use the set immediate mode of running finalizers because they do want to have, for whatever reason, run JavaScript there. So if we have a version-based approach, we'll not able to give people capability to either for their module to choose finalizers to run in this mode or run their finalizers in different mode. We will have to make this choice for them as we progress version.
Right, and then we don't necessarily even need the feature bits to do that because we already, like if you target Node API, well, actually, because yeah, like right now we don't check your Node API version at runtime either. I see what you're saying though, like, yeah, like there's almost two different things. One is that we want to let people opt in to behavior or to constrain, like they're basically like, hey, I don't need this thing, right? And I'm giving you extra information so that you can do something versus not.
In this specific examples, scenarios, the authors who would like to invoke JavaScript can still schedule a task with the event loop or the function to delay the JavaScript execution in the more eager garbage collection finalizers. So their behavior can still be achieved, but with a slightly code change, I believe. So yeah, it will require code modifications if they would like to upgrade to a newer Node.js versions, if we go with the versions.
Yeah, it's a
Checking
good
with the version.
I think it's for this specific scenario. I think it's a good solution. So we pretty much saying with version 9 or version 10, all of analyzers will be considered to be not supposed to run JavaScript code. But if you do want to do it, this is workaround. So we need to kind of explicitly state it in documentation. Yeah, I think it's a good solution. So everywhere we provide finalizer code, maybe like in documentation, which should kind of have some link which says like clarifies this behavior. Yeah, I think it's a good solution. Yes.
So in that case, we've targeted. We still need something more than we've had before, because today you can target a certain Node API version, but targeting an earlier one simply cuts out functions that you call, right? We still need to know now at runtime which Node API version you've targeted.
Yeah, it's what Chen Zhong proposes. Like, so if you look on his comment, he says like we can actually pass version during module registration. So we have struct and we have effectively 4 reserved pointers. So current my solution with features, we pass in pointer to features, but his proposal, like what if we pass inside this version number? So whenever we initialize in our environment, we would know like which version to target.
Yeah, the fundamental mechanism is quite similar with the current approach, whilst the value to be checked is just the versions instead of the feature bits.
Right, and I guess we could automatically set those set of bits based on the define.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess
then if you do define experimental, you're basically opting into whatever the current behavior, the latest behavior is, right? Like you don't just get access to the new methods, you also, you get forced into the new behavior.
Yeah.
I guess my question in this context would be, we have this API, an API get version. What version we're supposed to return in this case?
It would need to return the one that you've targeted. Although, like, I don't know, it's maybe we may need a new one, like the get API version, like it's probably documented to say this is the maximum one that the Node version of Node you're running can run. That always used to be the same effectively. As
currently it's return the version that Node Node is compiled with. So it's nothing related to the add-ons targeting version. Yeah, it's about the runtime version.
That's
Is
fine.
that-
Let's take a
is
look
it-
at the,
Node.js
Yeah.
version?
so docs, no, the API docs. What was it? Was called node, NAPI get version?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. I was thinking returning Node API version. Or maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, it's good.
The underscore.
Okay.
Underscore, yeah, right.
I have one more scenario to discuss. Okay, let's look at this first.
See, this is what it says, the highest version of Node API supported.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it even says there,
I
like,
mean-
Node is planned to be added of such newer releases. Node.js may support additional API functions.
I mean, the highest version to the node binary perspective is just the version it is compiled with, right? So that's the same thing.
Well, but this could be like, you could have compiled, you could have said, hey, I want to use Node API 6. This would still return whatever the highest one, the node that you're running currently could support.
Yeah,
So it would be more, it would be something like NAPI or Node API get effective version.
you mean get the version the add-on is compiled with?
Right. The like it's the one that you told us you wanted to use, like, 7, 8, 9.
But that doesn't need a Node API to get that, You can, since the Node API version you are targeting with is right in your add-on binary.
Right. So you already know that. So yeah, we don't necessarily
Yeah.
need a method to return that.
Yeah, exactly.
You would need your own, you'd have some, your own code could be guarded by that define effectively.
Yeah.
Do we need this function, or should this function return then? Okay, it's highest version. But okay, but if we're using an API experimental, what do we return here? Like, does it this?
It's still the version that Node.js is compiled with. So currently it returns 8, even if your add-on is compiled with experimental version.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more scenario I have in mind. Sorry to interrupt.
Go
So
for it.
imagine somebody wants to writes a kind of module, and they want this module to be pretty much compatible, say, with an API version 6. But if somebody has access to high version, like for example, an API version 8, they want to kind of use these features as well. Is it a valid scenario or not? Like somebody wants to write a module which may target multiple versions, depending on which version we own.
Right. You
In
want
that
to
way,
go ahead.
I mean, if they are in that way, they need to be compiled with the lower version, and they need to find the symbols dynamically, just like the document of the navigate versions says, and they need to find the symbols with the UVDL function dynamically and call that function, right? That's the existing behavior. So with this is already exists with this function.
Right.
Mhm.
So would this break that scenario though, right? Like if you've compiled, so you would say, so like, I guess you might still have to say, I want to use 6.
I
But
think
then
like,
you could dynamically look them up and use those new methods, assuming they're compatible with the behavior of 6.
no, I think it may not work because you're right. Like they need somehow to guess signature for all these methods, so it will be very hackish. Probably the more reliable scenario, like people say, I would like to use version 8, but if I'm on version 6, then I kind of reduce my behavior. What if we do this?
Your add-on will not be loaded by the node binary, right? Since the symbol is missing.
Well, unless you could write you'd still have to do the dynamic lookup of the symbol. Like you could target 8, not use the extra methods and dynamically look them up. But yeah, if you compile the symbols in, you just won't be loaded.
Okay, so the only kind of thing, let's say, I would like to use 6, but in dynamically load whatever for 8.
Yeah.
But behavior will be effectively whatever matches version 6 overall behavior.
Yeah, exactly. As long as we don't gather the new APIs with the versions. Like say, if you are targeting version 6, and I will just allow you to use version 8 if your symbols are dynamically looked, and it's just fine. But the behavior is undefined if you would like to use it.
So the major difference is that before, people would automatically keep moving up Node API versions, and they're compatible, right? Like we didn't actually change any behavior going backwards. What we're actually saying is now you'll have to opt into moving up, and that might actually require some code changes.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be good to get some feedback from module authors if that's going to cause any grief, or there's like, because it actually doesn't sound like, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't come up with a problem with that, but I think we want to get some broader feedback in terms of like, well, is that actually going to be, will that cause problems for some people or not? Or
yeah, I agree. So in order to do that, I think a separate issue or PR that is dedicated for the feature bit or the version bit can help people to discuss this specifically in a dedicated PR or issue.
yeah, I think like an issue, maybe, do we need the implementation to explain that? Or is it just like in an issue, we could basically say, we're considering, Node API versions used to be managed like this. You would automatically opt in unless you defined to use an older one, and it would always be compatible. The new model would be, we will pin that version. And so add-ons will continue. They continue to be compiled. They'll continue to work just like they did before. The API doesn't change, but like if you opt into a new Node API version, then you might actually need to do some changes to your API. But if you use the old one, you're still good, right? Like, and nothing's going to force you to move up. So you're still ABI stable as long as you choose for a given Node API version.
One I can think of is that maybe we can reach out to the other language wrap authors, like say NoPOS or
Right.
Neon.
Yep.
And and find out what they are thinking about on this model.
Yep, that'd be a good idea for sure.
Can we think about this change that Michael did for Electron 21 issues? In some sense, you are adding this feature, right? Like if people, we're saying like people can vote, maybe remove some APIs because there is a memory cache available.
Right.
In some sense, your new macro that you introduced, it in some sense is effectively kind of feature. So I think maybe features should be, instead of being some kind of bit flags, what if it will be some kind of macros, and we will just simply have inside of our header file, we say, okay, if we have version Node API 9 or Node API 10, then certain macros will be defined or not defined. So technically, these macros can be used by developers to check if certain features are available or not. Another scenario I have in mind that we're saying that this JS native API.h can be applicable to multiple JavaScript engines. But what if some engine does not support certain behavior yet? Like, for example, in Hermes, they implemented big int only recently. Before that, it was not implemented. And effectively, my implementation had to return error code and never use any big int number. So even using some Node API version, say 8, where it's supposed to work, but in fact, it didn't work, I would rather prefer to give people some kind of flag which people just simply check if it's there or not, if they need to. So I think, yeah. So what if features will be explained through macros? I mean, like combining version macro and effectively macro which people can check.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. Like say the language features. What if the language features the engine is not supported? But that's also a runtime behavior too. You cannot determine if a feature is available at a compile time, since you can load that add-on into different runtimes.
Yeah, you're right. In this case, we do need to have some kind of runtime function to check for that.
Yeah, it's almost like what you're asking for is like unsupported features, right?
Right.
And in theory, you'd want like some sort of bit mask for every single method.
Yeah, it sounds, if we go like this, is a bit too far, right?
But there could be a standard API, but the thing is, I guess it's like, since it's only at runtime, but by the time you've used the method, it's too late.
Right.
So I guess every runtime, every implementation would have to provide every single method. But then I think it's probably I think it's, in my mind, it's falling back to methods can methods return not supported, in which case, but then you're sort of almost asking like people to check every single method they make. Is this supported or not? Right? Because like you can always, like an implementation could always just say, hey, I don't support that. But
yeah, I believe that this behavior is quite similar to the system calls, since you can, I mean, the system calls can return non-implemented,
right. So I mean, that might be returning a standard error code, like defining, if we don't have one already, which is like unimplemented.
Yeah,
we could define a standard return code and then people could check for that. Although I don't know if people want to check after every single one, but
they probably don't need to. It's more like about, think about, we have new JavaScript standard, and new JavaScript standard implements some new feature in JavaScript language. Not
Right.
all JavaScript engines can be up to date, or especially maybe if we have implementation against old version of JavaScript engine. So some of these new features may be not available yet. And we may have some standard way for all these new features to potentially return not implemented.
Right.
Yeah, the engine release cycle may not align with the Node API version release cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like we could make the case that like Node is never going to return that. Just like it's today, it's never going to return that not implemented. But if an engine wants to return that and they can then convince the module owners to actually check for it, we should help that use case, right?
Right. It's like very similar to what you've done with this caged pointers. Like Node potentially right now would never fail on external buffers. If you say in electronic environment, this special error code may be returned.
Yeah, that seems worth considering. Kind of separate from this.
So just to kind of summarize what we discussed. So it sounds like in general, we're okay with going this versioning instead of feature bits. Is it correct?
I believe the summary is that we need to reach out to more broader audience to see if the version bit is simpler to in their perspective, since the feature flags need to involve each features individually, so that we can decide if we are going to switch to the version-based check.
The other thing too is for us to think through like the version bits, the feature flags were still a way for the module author to give us more information. So like, I know the one that Vladimir pointed out and said this use case, you know, Shenzong, you said like, hey, well, we can work around it in this case. Do we think there'll be cases like, is that always going to be the case? Or is there going to be some times where it is still useful for the module author to tell us like, I'm not using this feature. And then we can make things go 10 times faster. Right? Like, and just them telling us that versus writing their code differently. Like there's no way they can write their code differently, but by them saying, hey, I'm going to tell you something, and then you can go faster, is that still useful? Because I think that's kind of where we started, and maybe there's a workaround, but so it's worth thinking that through too. But I think you're like, there's a couple different things going on. And so getting that extra info about from the module authors in terms of like how we manage Node API versions, that's really useful because it maybe gives us some more flexibility. Even if we said we still needed feature bits, right? If you know what I mean. So go ahead.
Do we have a channel to ask this question? Because I like idea, just I'm curious what will be the next step to implement it.
I think I think Shenzong had a good idea that we should go to some of the people, like if we can figure out like who's maintaining NAPRFs.
Yeah, but the first step is submit a dedicated issue or PR for this specific discussion, and then we can guide people into this discussion.
Yeah,
just for this version-based check or feature bits, rather than, you know, right now it's in the reference types PR, so people might get confused what is this PR is doing right now.
Yeah, we should open an issue which describes what we're considering. I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer to open that issue.
Yeah, Vladimir, if you would like to open it, then that would be great, or I can help to do it.
Yeah, I'm willing to help too. I don't know if we want to like maybe do it in a shared like Google Doc and then post it or something.
I think your word will have definitely more weight than mine at this point. So thankfully, if you could help, I would appreciate it.
Well, yeah, great. I can write up a Google Doc about the reasoning and two alternatives and their advantages, so people can review and we can post it in the issue and get the people to into that issue to discuss about.
Yeah. And I think like I don't know if we even need to mention the feature books bits and that, although we can discuss in that documentation, because I could see us choosing both, actually, to be honest. Like I could see a case that might make sense where a certain set of the feature bits that, like in the current PR, were dedicated to the node version. And basically by setting that, whatever the node version you targeted would set some feature bits, and then there could be some others as well. But anyway, I guess I shouldn't go there. We can talk about that in the doc. And
yeah,
so if change on, we can start this doc. We can review it and augment it.
Yeah.
So we already did it in the past, so thank you. It's definitely
be
more helpful then.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
okay, no, that sounds good. That was a really, really interesting discussion and a good topic. I think we're at time now. So is there anything else that we should talk about, cover this week, or is everything, or can things wait till next week?
And just real quick, I made a comment on your PR for the handle no support for external buffers.
Yeah.
There's an additional documentation that needs to be updated.
Okay, thanks. I'll
Yep.
go take a look at that and add that in.
But that's all I had.
Okay, well, thanks everybody, and I think Vladimir, you deserve a special thanks for continuing to push on those feature bits and keeping it going over this long period of time, and entertaining all the different discussions and tangents we've had on that. So thanks for continuing to move that forward, and we'll see you everybody next time.
See you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.